Only people that are accustomed to that are serious ex-cons. You're learning how to be a prisoner. And by the way, it's in the Australian news. Parents are complaining. In fact, will you pull that from the article 2 days ago? Parents complaining about police state hospitals. Everybody who has a baby now in Australia, it's the same thing here now. They come in, they interrogate you. They treat you as if you're an abuser, you're bad. And the headline was, Child Protective Services Australia, all parents are liars. And the parents, the courts are even complaining, because it's happening to judges and people. Everybody, no one's exempt, are saying, you know, the hospitals are now prisons. That was the quote. Of course they are prisons. This whole world is a prison planet in the building. That's why we have prisonplanet.com. We're fighting the construction of the prison planet. Now, going over the backstory, this is why when I read an article, it does a disservice. That's why I can't ever get to much of the news, because I have to spend all my time on just a few things because I don't have time to get to everything else. If I just read an article about police want to stop drunk drivers and they're going to take blood from you at warrantless checkpoints, people can ignore that, or they can say, well, I don't like drunk drivers. It has nothing to do with drunk drivers. It's about medicalizing cadres of police to A, violate the Fourth Amendment, and to B, be medically trained to extract blood. And it's all on record. Just like I told you they were going to start putting TSA on the streets 8 years ago, I saw Governor Ridge say that was the plan. You'll have an ID card to leave your house to have a job. People keep saying, Alex, how do you predict all this? They're telling us. See, that's what I want to get across to you. This is not my opinion. They're training the cops. They're putting in the federal fusion centers. They're federalizing things illegally. They're just rolling all of this out. So they put on the books this executive order to take blood to get a driver's license, which, again, will be a national ID card and now is one under the Real ID. You have to have it to have a job. So you got to give them your blood to have a job. You don't submit properly, now you can't fly. You don't submit properly, now you're banned from driving. You don't submit properly, now you can't leave your neighborhood. I mean, the MIT and the Pentagon admit this is their plan. I brought MIT Magazine in here years ago and showed it to you where this is diabolical. You notice 5 years ago in Fallujah, they face scanned the entire population. I have it on video with Tom Brokaw saying if they're caught without their ID cards, they are executed on the spot. See, they're practicing the evil out in the open. Now they've enrolled the troops in the same system. Now you're enrolled in it to get a driver's license. See, everything that's done to the Iraqis is for us. In fact, the Pentagon admits it's all a laboratory on how to control populations, and they admit the system they developed for the U.S. through MIT that they call a control grid, the grid, is now a control grid that they're using in Iraq. So they learn from both angles. Now, all over the country, the feds have paid to put face scanning cameras in, license plate reading cameras 15 years ago. Now they're announcing it. Now they're letting the slaves know. Now they're wiring it into the local federalization center known as threat fusion centers, with CIA openly in there illegally. All illegal. Everything they're doing is illegal. They don't care. Remember, these are criminals, and they laugh. It's funny. And when I was in the DMV 13 years ago with the state police handing out the executive order that this was part of a national ID card plan implemented by stealth, and that it was part of a DNA database system, and I also exposed they were taking babies' blood, and I was handing out the executive order, and the cops were just going... It was so funny that I was giving them an executive order. It was so funny. Because, see, 13 years ago, we're going to take blood. Look at this crazy guy. They were just... I mean, it's all on video. They were just... It was so funny. 13 years later, they're like, absolutely, we're going to take blood. Absolutely, we got face scanning cameras. Absolutely, we got license plate readers. Absolutely, the CIA's in our command center. We go fight Al-Qaeda. Now I'm like, oh, here's all your internal training manuals. It's really for gun owners. Well, you are a threat. See how they go from laughing at us? I mean, their faces would turn red. They were... See, because they've been brainwashed by the television and the culture. I don't mean that figuratively. I mean literally to have a psychological trigger compulsion to laugh at things that they deep down know are true. Because they're scared, so it's a defense mechanism. Now it's here, all admitted. Now they're ready to roll it out because they beta tested it and completed it, and the cops are like, you bet we're going to do it. So this is about a global DNA database, and if you don't believe that, we've covered all the evidence in the past. It's in my films, but just look at the babies. 39 years ago, worldwide in every industrialized nation, a UN program was implemented to take blood from all babies at birth for bioweapons developments, also to patent key proteins and DNA strands. And now it's all been announced. A secret 39-year program globally. We're in a global government. The same programs we have are the same programs they have under the same names in England, Australia, Germany, Japan. This is all master controlled, okay? They are out in the open. This is continuity of agenda. So, continuing. It violates the Fourth Amendment. It trains the police to violate it. They're taking your blood. And this is how they phase it in. 2.5 years ago, they started doing warrantless checkpoints. But to phase it in, they said, well, a judge signs a master warrant. And courts said, you can't do that. That's not a real warrant. Doctors refused to take the blood without warrants. Nurses refused to take it. The police started refusing to take it, but they can always find people on the force that are stupid and will. I remember this 9 years ago in Arizona and Colorado. We first started seeing it. And I would have Denver Post articles on air and Tucson articles. And people were calling saying I was lying. Because back then we weren't simulcast on web video. They wouldn't go check the article. They just say I was lying. See, 9 years ago, people couldn't believe that the federal pilot was already going on with federal money. Now, just 2.5 years ago, the state comes in and says, you can't do that. And people all thought it was Art Aceveda doing it. Well, I did some research on Art Aceveda after he'd been a guest a few times on air. And it turns out there's a special federal board that recommended him when he was in the highway patrol and took him to Austin and made him chief. And that most police chiefs in big cities are put in by the feds. And I learned about that when I noticed this year the feds recommended him for the Dallas police chief. They recommended 3. He was the second choice. Dallas took the number 1 choice. So the feds tell the city, you got 3 choices. Here they are. Now, you'll notice these federal police chiefs, and I have no doubt Aceveda's definitely black ops. I mean, most big police chiefs are CIA. Even the former police chief of L.A., Daryl Gates, admitted that years ago, that he was involved with the CIA. So we've got CIA agents over us from the federal government, and they roll it out. And the state rules that the red light cameras are illegal. He puts them in anyways. The state says these checkpoints are illegal. He keeps doing it because he's got full federal backing. See, I don't get to have an Austinite or somebody from Texas as my police chief. No, I get to have somebody who was brought up in a communist state of Cuba over me. And when the CBC came to interview me to get a license to be able to film in the city of Austin, there's no law, but they just do it. The Austin police said, you don't want to go interview Alex Jones. And the guy was shocked by what they said about me, but wouldn't go into detail. A professional, big CBC, producer. Sat right there interviewing me, and after the interview, started crying and said, well, I'm not going to get into it. The point is that because they've got humanity. See, people who have brains, folks, know we're going into Nazi Germany. So you think it's fun living in a city where, we've got this nice, glad-handing, very charismatic devil in Art Aceveda? Now, you expand on all of this. Feds, police enforce mandatory blood test at Florida checkpoints. And, the big issue here is these are federal grants. They admit it, going in all over the country. No refusal, no Fourth Amendment, no probable cause. We're going to take your blood. We're going to take your blood. And we're going to do it to protect you from the drunk drivers. Baloney. Here's another one illustrating what I'm talking about. terrorist watch list. One tip now, enough to put name in database, officials say. And they admit that one person ever calls into a tip line on you, you're in the terror database and may be denied flying, traveling, you name it. No judge, no jury. And then if you're on the no-fly, you're on a no-gun buy they're trying to push through. I mean, do you get this is classic authoritarianism, internal passport behavior? And they say they've got to do it because a Nigerian man tried to blow up a Detroit-bound airliner. And then they don't ever tell you here, it's on record, the U.S. government helped him get on the plane and protected him. See, they never tell you the feds blew up Oklahoma City and were caught red-handed. They never tell you that. It's like, oh, we got to do it because this idiot they drugged up and put on the plane. The witnesses all said he was disheveled, looked drugged, sharp-dressed man with, no passport or nothing, gets him on the plane. Security gets him on the plane. The State Department admits they were ordered to help him get on the plane. But I'll just ignore all that. And the news keeps saying they put the scanners in because of the Christmas Day bombing a year ago. They'd already ordered them the year before. I mean, these are all PR rollouts in front of everyone. Can't you see it? It's like even Newsweek admitted that 44,000 U.S. troops, 18,000 British troops, 2 aircraft carriers, all massed in the 2 months before 9/11 in and around Afghanistan. Bush signed the launch order on September 10th to attack Afghanistan. Then on September 12th, he told you he was going to attack them because they had attacked us. I mean, they planned this stuff right out in the open in front of everyone. In front of everyone. Right out in the open. They don't care. And I know they're good bureaucrats and good police and others. You better decide what side you're on right now. Okay, there's no more time to screw around here. People who think it's the safe path to keep their head down and go on to get along, that is the sure course to destruction. We are caught in the gravitational pull of tyranny. We have got to hit our thrusters and get out of it or we're going to be destroyed. You may think you're on the winning team because you're with tyranny. Tyranny is going to eat your lunch, servants of evil. Remember that. Remember, in history, that's a rule. You get fed on more than the good guys. We'll be right back. Everything we see happening in Europe and England is now being set up here. Right after the staged bombings in 2005, within a week of the bombings, I was in England to cover it. And police would walk up and just tell protesters, you're not allowed to demonstrate. And the law wasn't in place yet. It was going into place the week after. But they still just said, we'll arrest you, leave. They'd tell me you're not allowed to videotape in the downtown. I go, but you've got cameras on me. They'd say, well, that's just the way it is. Steve Watson, Paul Watson, they've all been stopped. Steve Watson was taking his girlfriend out to dinner. Nice part of London. Goons walked over. Police said, line up. Everybody give us your papers. And then asked him, where are you going? Are you terrorist? And really got off on rubbing his face in it. And we've seen this trend. If you're a young man with a good-looking woman, they get really mad. Because you think these guys can get women? That's really their big problem, is they're not successful. They're not empowered.